I'm gonna find. And I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
Except you don't really. Not every last one of them. Oh, and spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes. I talk movies all day and sometimes I talk about games, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 and some of the many things that just don't make sense, because this game goes into a lot of detail, a lot of stuff that I'm sure most people won't even notice, yet there are a ton of things that just don't add up. Now I'm only going to talk about 7 of them because I ain't trying to be here until Half-Life 3 gets released, but before I start, let me bring up the mystery that's probably on most people's minds, and that is, why would Joel be so trusting of Abby and walk straight into a trap like that?
Y'all act like you heard of us or something.
Because they have.
The thing is, this one actually does make sense. Let me explain. Now, people bring up the fact that in the first game when Joel saw the hunter pretending to be hurt, that he didn't believe that he was and then tried to run him over.
Please!
Holy shit. Help! Are we gonna help him?
Put your seatbelt on, Ellie.
Well, what about the guy?
He ain't even hurt.
Turns out the hunter was pretending to be hurt and Joel was right not to trust him. So why would Joel go from being hyper suspicious to risking his life to help some stranger? Well, when you look at the other instances of Joel displaying some level of suspicion.
You do that, I'll give you your guns back, then some.
How do we know you got him?
Now it's all about getting out of this shithole.
We can help each other.
Ellie.
Safety in numbers and all that.
You might realize they all have something in common. And when you look at Abby, you might realize there's something different about her. Anyway, let's talk about some real mysteries that just don't make sense. First of all, Dina. Now, Dina was drinking at the party, later on she's smoking weed, she then falls through a roof, gets strangled. There's no way her baby is healthy. That kid should have a dent in his head or something. But, to be fair, not all conditions are visible, but if by The Last of Us Part 3, JJ doesn't have some kind of brain disorder, then they are lying. Now, there are parts of the game where you're going in and out of water in the cold of winter, yet no one gets hypothermia? Doesn't even factor in a little bit. Plus the fact that constant temperature changes weakens your immune system, yet no one even sneezes? I'm actually wondering if they took the illnesses out due to a fear that people would be worried they'd catch COVID from a video game. People are dumb. That wouldn't surprise me. Ellie's backpack is open throughout pretty much the whole game, yet nothing ever falls out? She must have the most amount of Velcro straps in there. But an even bigger mystery is none of her items ever get water damaged. No clogs, no jamming, nothing. And there is no way, and I mean no way, that Walkman was waterproof. And speaking of Walkmans, who's still making AA batteries? Alkaline batteries last around 5 to 10 years when they're not being used. This scene is set something like 22 years after the outbreak. Those batteries would not work. And speaking of batteries, who's still making lithium batteries? Specifically, who's still making lithium batteries for the PlayStation Vita? Lithium batteries last about 3 years before they start to have performance issues. And let's be honest, Sony stopped caring about the PlayStation Vita about a year after it was released. Why would anybody living in a world of scarce resources take the time to figure out how to make a brand new PS Vita battery just to play Hotline Miami? Actually, to be fair, Hotline Miami is a pretty banging game, so yeah, that bit makes sense. Now, it might not have been a zebra that gave birth, I'm just kind of assuming it was because they show a zebra later trapped in a wire. Might not have been the same animal that gave birth, but in any case...
She already gave birth.
Ew.
And look, 2 sets of tracks.
Dad?
It's her. Let's go.
That doesn't sound good.
No, she's in pain.
Some animal gave birth, walked through a gate, and then put the gate back? What kind of animals are they dealing with here? And speaking of gates, why would Dr. Abby's dad lock the gate behind him? Making Abby climb all over the place, fall down, get covered in mud, risk injury, could have cut herself. Now I know he didn't actually tell Abby where he was going and she wasn't really supposed to be going after him, but he did tell Owen, and considering his position in the Fireflies, if someone did need to reach him urgently like Owen did, locking the gates behind you is a hazard. They could have ended up with a whole bunch of people with broken bones, cuts and scars. It's pretty irresponsible is what I'm saying. So here's the thing, Yara perhaps didn't get along with her mother because her mother never accepted Lev's transition, but anyone who can look at their own mother's mutilated dead body and not be fazed by it, you gotta be a psycho.
You were defending yourself. You did nothing wrong.
You are not a well-adjusted human being at all. Are you telling me that she had that much hatred for the woman that birthed her, the woman that nursed her, the woman that raised her, just because they had a difference of opinion? At least Lev had the decency to cry in a corner. Yara is not a nice person at all. How did the Seraphites build the sky bridges without anyone noticing? They effectively built suspension bridges between towns with limited technology and not a single person outside of the Seraphites village knew about it? That seems pretty far-fetched to me. My guess is someone did know, probably Isaac, but since he dead, I suppose we'll never know. And speaking of Isaac getting killed, out of all of these characters, none of them survived the game they were in. Gee, I wonder what they all have in common. In fact, Jesse didn't survive, Yara didn't survive, Manny didn't survive, not even PS Vita girl survived. Interesting. Anyway, before I say what I think the biggest mystery is, the biggest thing about this game that just does not make any sense, let me go for a few honorable, or perhaps I should say dishonorable mentions. Why is Lil Nas X in this game? Or is Jackson at Old Town Roads that he rode to until he couldn't ride no more? How did Rose Tico get from a galaxy far, far away a long time ago to future Earth? Is there a time and space machine somewhere? Why is the Miz in this game and not once does he say awesome? Also, in a game that attempts to highlight transgender issues, whose idea was it to have Abby make a gender disparaging joke towards Manny?
Ladies first.
Another month and I wouldn't fit through here.
Go ahead, Abs.
He said ladies first.
When they climb all over those broken buildings, how exactly do they get back since apparently they have limited climbing abilities? And towards the end of the game, why is Ellie still so skinny when she's been eating Dina every day? Alright, one more thing before the end. If you liked this game, check out these games. They're all linear action games, but they spend less time being a movie and more time being an actual game. Okay, so out of all the things that don't make sense in The Last of Us Part 2, I think the biggest is, why is this game called The Last of Us Part 2? With the first game it made sense. Humanity was confined to quarantine zones, only a few factions outside of the zones. These were The Last of Us. But now turns out that there were many factions outside of the quarantine zones, plus food, medicine and ammunition don't seem nowhere near as scarce as they were in the first game. The walls have an abundance of resources and a gym. Jackson has enough space for Joel to have his own house, a pretty large house with 2 bathrooms at that. They have parties, schooling, apparently they have alkaline and lithium battery experts. The Seraphites built sky bridges. These communities aren't just surviving, they're thriving. It's not The Last of Us anymore. This is just us now. So I'm going to end on this. I liked this game. This and the first game are amongst the best games I've played in their respective generations. It delivers an intense, thought-provoking experience that you don't get in a lot of video games. But where I think it falls short is that it tries to do too much. And I don't mean it does a lot. I mean it tries to do too much. There's an amazing amount of detail that went into this, like the song that Joel sings, Future Days by Pearl Jam, which was released October 11th, 2013, after Outbreak Day, September 26, 2013. So how does Joel know about a song that wasn't released in his version of reality? Turns out Pearl Jam played it at a concert and uploaded it to YouTube in July 2013. That's incredible detail. How'd you go to those kind of lengths, but then have Dina leave a baby's toy on a broken down rusty old tractor? That's just bad parenting. And where exactly was that last sheep supposed to be hiding? Because on one side it's just hay, and I wasn't turned away long enough for it to walk from the other side, certainly not without making any kind of noise. That sheep just appeared out of nowhere. So what, we got magic sheep now? So yeah, it tries to do too much. And sometimes when you try to do too much, you end up not doing quite enough. And that is what I think of The Last of Us Part 2. What do you think? Fireflies or full of lies? Let me know down below. And while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.